member for Mackellar, and Tony Sheldon is a member of the Senate for the mighty Labor Party, as he would say. Now, let's get into the conversation, lads, about something other than to do with...
Well, I didn't know it was casual Thursday.
Look at you, you've dressed up for the principals meeting.
The great Paul Murray. You turn up with a suit and tie, Tony.
I think Tony knows the host doesn't have a tie. All right, here we go. Now, always, as elections have been coming and going, people have been voting earlier and earlier and earlier. Huge numbers of people voting earlier and earlier. And of course, there are people who, of course, that means are voting way before the election campaigns are over, even after the official launches are happening. So now the suggestion is that the maximum number of days before an election where people should be able to vote is about 12 days. Jason, how do you feel about early voting? There's lots of logistics on the political level that people at home probably don't care about. But more importantly, for the overall way that an election is run, do you think that there should be fewer days that you can turn up early?
Mate, absolutely. Look, I've got to tell you that the first principle should be that we should make voting in Australia as easy as possible. But what we've had over the last couple of elections is the AEC just massively increase the amount, how much earlier you can vote. So it's gone from a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. As I'm sure Tony's had the same experience, you stand on pre-poll these days in that first week, no one turns up. No one turns up. And even in the second week, it's not really until towards the end of the week that you get a few people starting to come in. It all happens in that last week. And I've really questioned the allocation of resources that the AEC is dedicating to pre-poll, especially this early out. So I think this is a good move by the Parliament. I'm sorry we had to do it. The AEC didn't come to its own senses.
Tony, how do you feel about fewer days?
Well, I think that a couple of things, and that is that we've got a COVID at the moment. So the question is about, is this the right timing to change that because of potential lockdowns, different zones that might not be able to be, where people will be able to vote. So there are some practical suggestions that should be looked at about what we do during this COVID period. The other thing is, I think what's quite clear, and that is that there's been a number of reports that have recommended that it shouldn't be any longer than 14 days. And I think, that's a number of those have been unanimous reports in Parliament as well. And I think getting a consensus on any of these electoral changes is important to make sure it works properly.
I'd like to ask you about preferential voting in the Senate, but I'm pretty sure that's a fight that will be very exciting to me, but boring for everyone else. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. Now,
I find it exciting.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we could ball for Australia. The three of us could have a great old chat about it, and then you could slowly hear TVs going click, 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 click. So, there's a conversation happening right now amongst epidemiologists, and now it's starting to happen publicly. It's getting louder in places like the United States, which is about whether kids should be vaccinated. Now, depending on what data you read, see, or where you get your information sources for about what the next great COVID worry is going to be, this seems to be something that is being openly discussed. So what do you think, Jason, about kids being vaccinated? And do they then become part of the 70% and the 80% thresholds that I know we're all kind of choking under at the moment?
Yeah, look, the evidence is in. I think that we need to open this up to children, even if it's just a precautionary thing for us to do. We've already seen infections in Australia of somewhere around about 600 for 0 to 9-year-olds, and then another 600 between 9 and 12-year-olds. So this is clearly something that should be on our radar and something that we should be talking about now.
Yeah, this is one of those experts speaking publicly.
It used to be true that kids didn't get sick much is not true anymore for Delta variant. And this is why in Louisiana, the epicenter of the US, the median age of children's hospital admissions had dropped from 16 years old in June to 12 years old in July to now 5 years old.
Tony, is it too early to be talking about that when obviously the main thrust right now is trying to get as many adults over the line as possible?
Oh, look, I think you're partially right there, Paul, and that is it too early because we haven't got the vaccines that we need to make sure we vaccinate enough of the community. But also I think that we should be, at the same time, we should be actually setting about what we're going to do about younger people who can be vulnerable and carriers for COVID. And just a report even just coming out this evening where Autism Awareness Australia Chief Executive Nicole Rogerson said up to 12 students were among those who were tested positive at the Giant Steps School in Gladesville. And my heart goes out to them and their families. It must be particularly worrying. If we had a vaccine process in this country that worked, then we could have had those kids vaccinated. It's particularly disturbing when you see that those kids are suffering from various forms of disabilities, and they're supposed to be on the priority list. It's certainly worrying about how the government's handling this, but it's important that we do actually go to those kids and give them an opportunity to turn around and make sure that they can protect themselves. I was going to say this just personally. If my kids are now older than 16, so they've been vaccinated, but if they were under 16, I don't know how horrified they'd be if they turned up to their grandparents' place who have also been vaccinated, but end up catching COVID, because there's no guarantee that people at that age will survive even with the vaccine. It's a very, very improved situation for people that get the vaccines. That's important we do it. But I couldn't imagine my kids would be devastated if they weren't not vaccinated under 16, and they killed their grandparents. It'd be horrific.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also, Jason, I echo your thoughts, by the way, about the Moderna vaccine. Good that that's the third one we're adding to the list, but crikey, it took a long time to give the tick when it had been ticked off in other parts of the world, and that's going to be part of the strategy, isn't it?
It's a key. To Tony's point, in September, you will start seeing a massive ramp up in vaccinations, which will go all the way through the end of the year. We're just doing some numbers on the back of an envelope. New South Wales looks like it'll get to 80% first vaccinations somewhere in early October. So, that's a good news story. And then obviously some of the other states are not far behind. Some are a long way behind, but some aren't. And we had news during the week that the TGA is a week or two from approving vaccines for 12 to 15-year-olds. But the news that we have out of the United States, the news we have out of the UK, is that they need to be looking at vaccinating children, as that expert earlier said, as young as 2. So that's really the next frontier for us. And, we need to be ahead of this. We can't be turning around in a month's time going, oh, how did this happen? We know about it. TGA needs to be on top of it, and then we need to get in front of it as well in September and October.
Yeah, correct. All right, give me a bumper sticker. Who do you think's the winner or loser of this week, Tony?
Well, I think it's probably Jason having to wear that tie, because in my case, if I wear a tie and jacket, I look like the defendant. But he seems to pull it off.
You have a lot to defend, Tony. You have a lot to defend.
Jason, you've got a winner or loser for me, mate?
Mate, I reckon the big winner of this week, I don't want to say, but I won't tell you whether I thought he was a winner or a loser, but Brad Hazard's performance in the Upper House inquiry, that certainly gave you material for the week.
Yeah, that's all right. I can put that in a very obvious column. I've already voted that way. Thank you, lads. Do appreciate it. All right, plenty more here on Paul Murray Live after the